Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Episode 91 of the Last Round Podcast, a redo. We tried this first for the first couple minutes, and then we ran into some technical difficulties, so this is a repeat. We want to be as transparent as we can to our listeners, so, we want to make sure the audio quality and everything is as great as, as good as it can be. Like everybody else out there, we are also trying to adjust to this pandemic COVID era, especially with our audio quality and all that stuff, delivering content for everybody, boxing content, obviously, during this difficult time for everybody, that hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right, Mike?
Hopefully. It looks like we're kind of getting closer towards that light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously, Matchroom was coming back, PBC, Golden Boy's done a show, Top Rank's been back for a while. So fingers crossed we're, obviously going in the right direction.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. And, that's all we can do at the moment. But, jumping right into it, if you're watching the broadcast, like I mentioned the first time, you can obviously see who we have. He's promoted the likes of the Klitschko's, Chocolatito Gonzalez, who, in my opinion, I think it's cool to see that he's coming back in the fold. Absolutely. Now, I think it's great because he did go through a streak of some unfortunate losses the last couple years ago, but now he's back in the fold and back at the top of the game there.
He's a champion again.
He's a champion again. Yeah. But like I said, you promoted Chocolatito Gonzalez, the great Triple G Gennady Golovkin, the former unified middleweight champion of the world. Yeah. You've worked alongside the management team of Sugar Shane Mosley, the great Sugar Shane Mosley, obviously, and then you're also the head of 360 Promotions, which I would say your home base is at the Avalon, right, in Hollywood, California. That's been where I think all of your shows have been, right, Tom?
Yeah, well, we've done some other 360 shows on HBO, but
right.
That's where we really develop the fighters as a local show out here in LA to develop talent. We've had Sergey Bohachuk fight there a number of times. Brian Sabayo out of New York has fought there before. We just had Adrian Montoya on the show, so it's a fun experience there at the Avalon in Hollywood. It's called Hollywood Fight Nights.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's on hold because there's no live ticket gate, but we're working on a solution to bring back the Hollywood Fight Night show on a platform that can be promoted without having the live fan base there.
Tom, does it make you feel like you've really achieved something when people like Joshua Franco, who have been on those Hollywood Fight Night shows, you do that obviously to try and get people of that stature up, to maximize their potential. And obviously, he went away to Vegas, the B-side, and won the world title. So how does that make you feel?
Yeah. No, it's great. And, that's really what that platform is for, is to develop talent, to take them to the next level. I really think Sergey Bohachuk, he's 17-0 with 17 knockouts. Mm-hmm. I'm convinced that he'll become a world champion. He's a super welterweight, and he's in the ratings now. And guys like that. Brian Sabayo has a ton of potential. Like I mentioned, also Adrian Montoya. It's a great launching pad, and it's nice to see when they go from that platform onto the bigger stage. That's definitely exciting. Like Sabayo fought on the Triple G shows in Madison Square Garden last year, and a lot of times when guys go from the smaller shows to a big arena like that under the big spotlights on a huge show, they'll freeze under the spotlight. And he knew he had to have very difficult fights in order to get on that show, and he that really brought out the best of him, the talent that he was able to display in the ring there at Madison Square Garden. He sold a lot of tickets. He's local there in New York, and that's a huge part of a developing fighter's career is marketability, ticket sales, and we were really pleased with his performances.
Tom, you mentioned, obviously that during the pandemic era, there's no live ticket gate, there's no fans, obviously. So that's obviously a big chunk of income, for promoters and in general that's not coming in. Yeah. Now that kind of boxing is pretty much getting into the swing of things, at least bringing back fights, like Mike mentioned, Matchroom just started their roller coaster going forward with Eddie Hearn's, backyard fights. And then Golden Boy just came back with Virgil Ortiz. PBC just announced some fights on Showtime, and then I think Fox is coming up as well. Yep. I know you said with that, that you're looking into how to come back, and you're kind of in potential talks with different maybe platforms and stuff like that. I mean, is there anything that you can kind of, forecast for the fans in terms of the 360 promotions, especially, are you talking to the Avalon maybe to try to bring some fights there during this pandemic era?
Avalon's going to be tough because of the restrictions here in California, especially in Los Angeles, for indoor events. So Avalon will be tough, but the show that we had scheduled right after the pandemic hit, March 29th, was a tremendous show. That was actually going to be on UFC Fight Pass. So we're looking into doing another show on Fight Pass without the fans. Naturally, financially, it'll be a lot different, but we'll see. We just want to keep the guys busy and keep the brand going. But right now, as you said, we're getting used to all the different challenges, and we had the technical difficulty before. Hope you guys can hear me better now. But we're really looking forward to Cecilia Brækhus fighting August 15th. You mentioned Eddie had a great show. He had a tremendous setup there with Sky Sports and DAZN USA. In his backyard of the house he grew up in, and I think they did a tremendous job there. Top Rank, kind of was the first major promoter doing the shows on ESPN. There were a lot of challenges there. We definitely, we helped with a couple of fighters for their shows because they were really scrambling on, either boxers weren't ready because the gyms were closed or there were some positive tests. And, so we're happy to see Top Rank come back. Like you said, the Showtime and the PBC have announced really a full slate of shows. So it's just fun. And it's nice to see boxing is back. Golden Boy did their show. I have a good relationship with all the promoters, and I like to support all the different shows. So it's a welcome change for boxing to be back, even if it's without the fans. I mean, the Tulsa show is going to be interesting. It's actually an outdoor event with no fans, and all the different testing that's going to be done, and then the quarantine once you arrive to make sure that nothing. First, you have to get a test before you get on the plane. Then you have to you have to be quarantined for 48 hours to make sure while you were flying, whether it's at the airport or on the plane, that you didn't get exposed to the virus, and you're in the room the entire time. They bring the food to you, and it's definitely a different circumstance. And what I would say is, it's going to be challenging for fighters. Fighters that are used to running in the mornings, going outside, maybe going into a steam room or a sauna or whatever, if they need to lose weight or if they have to have a special diet. And now you're under a completely different restriction as to what you're able to do in order to prepare during fight week. So it's going to be a lot different fight week than we've ever seen before.
Tom, you could go one better than Eddie, and you could hold the fights actually in your house, like in your kitchen, in your living room.
Yeah, I don't know if the living room's big enough to put the boxing ring, but yeah, no, like I said, I support all the promoters. I'm just happy to see boxing back. Getting back to Cecilia, she's broken so many records and accomplished so much in her career. She'll be the first woman ever to headline DAZN, which is tremendous. She's the undisputed welterweight champion. She holds the 3 Guinness Book of World Records. She's Ring Magazine's pound for pound female champion. She actually got boxing legalized in her home country of Norway. It was banned for 35 years, if you can imagine. And she spearheaded the movement for professional boxing to get back to Norway because she was a world champion and she could fight anywhere in the world except for her home country. So because of that, was a big push to get boxing legalized. She fought on pay-per-view there in Norway. She's very successful, very popular in Norway. She sold out 10,000-seat arena there in Oslo. And if she can be successful against Jessica McCaskill, which is not an easy task. Jessica McCaskill is a world champion at 140 pounds. They've agreed to meet at 145 pounds, which is very difficult to do, to put 2 world champions together to make a fight like that. And you got to give a lot of credit to Cecilia and Jessica to make that happen. Katie Taylor's fighting a week later, August 22nd, again in Eddie's fight camp. So if Cecilia is successful, if Katie's successful, that would be a huge fight. But you can't overlook Jessica McCaskill because she gave Katie Taylor a very tough fight. And we know she's coming and she wants to win Cecilia's title. So we're excited for August 15th, DAZN USA from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tom, it kind of looks like you've got a little tournament going on with, Cecilia and Jessica, the winner more than likely fighting Katie Taylor or Delphine Persoon. Have you discussed with Eddie and the girls about what weight category it will be at? Will it be at a catch weight?
It would be at a catch weight, yeah, because from my understanding is they're fighting at 135. The fight with Katie and Delphine Persoon, which is not an easy fight for Katie either. Delphine Persoon gave her all she could handle when they fought the first time. And for her to do the rematch, you got to give a lot of credit. I know people were looking forward to Amanda Serrano, but for whatever reason, that fight fell apart. I saw some of the back and forth on social media. But, having Delphine Persoon in a rematch is a tremendous fight with Katie. But that's really the goal. And that was one of the big reasons that Cecilia signed with Matchroom is to go in that direction. And I think if they both win and if they fight each other, that would definitely be the biggest fight in women's boxing history. And it would be, to go back to your original questions, it would be at a catch weight because Katie's moving up, Cecilia's moving down, and we'd have to figure out what the weight would be there.
Do you think that would take women's boxing to another level just with the promotion?
I think absolutely. When you got 2 popular fighters, and don't forget, these are internationally popular fighters. Like I said, Cecilia is extremely popular in Europe. She's wanted to come over here to the States after being so successful in Norway. Like I said, selling out 10,000-seat arenas, and then coming over here and really just sacrificing to be on HBO at the time. She broke the glass ceiling on HBO at 45-year history of HBO, and they've never had a female championship fight. Actually, there hasn't been any female fight on HBO in their 45-year history. I got to give Peter Nelson a lot of credit for his foresight. He's the one that really opened the door for Triple G to be on the network, and he became really one of their most popular stars on HBO. He's the one that greenlit Chocolatito Gonzalez to be on the show, which they hadn't had a flyweight on HBO for a number of years. The lighter weights, and that's how we came up with the Superfly series, which was extremely popular. And got to give him credit for allowing Cecilia to fight on the network and then headlining her own show. So Cecilia, as of now, would be the only fighter in boxing history to headline both HBO and DAZN on August 15th.
Cecilia's had a Rocky-style camp up in Big Bear, and I think now, because of the first fight being cancelled, she's been in Big Bear by herself for about 6 months.
Since January, yeah. So it'll actually be 7 months. She was originally supposed to fight Jessica McCaskill April 17th. And so that got pushed back now to August 15th. And we were really telling Eddie and Frank that, she's been in camp for so long. It's actually smart that she stayed in camp for a number of reasons. First, she's completely isolated up there in Big Bear. It's a private gym. It's Abel Sanchez's Summit Gym. So she actually lives there at the gym. She's not going out driving around, and during this whole pandemic, she was about as safe as anyone could be, because Big Bear at that time was, pretty isolated to start with, and then just being in the gym, living in the gym. He's got 2 houses up there, and that worked out well for her. But secondly, if she had gone back to Norway, most likely she wouldn't have been able to get back in time to start training, because of the travel ban between the U.S. and Europe. So she made the sacrifice, as many champions do that are serious about their career. And luckily, she was able to come back on the first show here for DAZN USA, then Matchroom here in the United States. And as luck would have it, now she's headlining that show. So we're really excited about that fight.
Was there any reason behind the changing coach from Jonathan Banks to Abel Sanchez?
Well, Jonathan, I have to give him a lot of credit. When Cecilia left Sauerland Promotion, when the contract was up, Vladimir Klitschko pretty much took her under his wing, because they had known each other from Germany, and he took her under his wing, really supported her, allowed her to train in his training camp up in the Austrian Alps, and put her together with Jonathan Banks, his trainer. After Emmanuel Stewart unfortunately had passed away, Jonathan Banks had taken over training Vladimir Klitschko. And so Jonathan had also worked with Cecilia, and they got along really well. I think Jonathan instilled some of the American style boxing that he brought from the Kronk Gym and from Detroit, and his tutelage under Emmanuel Stewart. And I think Jonathan was with Cecilia maybe 6 or 7 or 8 fights at the time. And then when Jonathan became Triple G's trainer, Cecilia felt that, there'd be naturally Triple G would be the priority as being one of boxing's biggest superstars. And she looked at it as an opportunity of, well, now Abel Sanchez. Abel had actually never trained a female fighter. And I actually and he was pretty kind of old school about that. He's like, well, they don't train the same as the guy. They don't fight the same, whatever it is. And she asked, could I put her in contact with Abel? And he made an exception and agreed to train Cecilia. And I think with the first fight that she fought in Monte Carlo last year, you saw a pretty impressive display, and now the proof's going to be in the pudding. I think it helps quite a bit being in camp from January the entire time with Abel, so she gets used to a new training style, new training techniques, actually the strategy in the ring, things of that nature. So I think that's been very beneficial for her. And with Jonathan, now this will be his 3rd fight with Triple G, and you see Triple G getting used to Jonathan's style as well, and he's supposed to fight in September. So I think proof will be in the pudding if she looks good on August 15th, which she has it's no easy task fighting Jessica McCaskill, who's a unified champion at 140 pounds. So it's going to be a tough fight for her. If she's successful, another record will be broken in terms of she has 25 title defenses right now, which is tied with the great Joe Louis. Right. It's hard to compare, heavyweight championship fights with where Cecilia's at, but when you look at the longevity of her career, everything that she's accomplished, being undisputed champion for so long, making so many title defenses, when you can do 25 title defenses and then make a 26th one, that's historic for both men or women championship boxing.
Tom, do you know if the fight, will it be 2-minute rounds or 3-minute rounds? And also, do you think they should go to 3-minute rounds to make it so that the girls can get more tired and you actually see more knockouts? Because, that's what the paying fans really want to see.
Fans like to see knockouts. You're right about that. That's how Triple G became so popular. He was knocking everybody out. He had 23 knockouts in a row. He became a fan favorite. He sold out Madison Square Garden. He broke the record. There were so many great champions that have fought here at the StubHub Center, which is now Dignity Health. And he broke his first fight there. He broke the sales record, the ticket record of attendance, where we actually had to add stands the first time ever in that arena's that stadium's history. So
that was a Rubio fight, right?
That was the Rubio fight, yeah. And then he sold out the Forum. Naturally, he sold out T-Mobile Arena up in Vegas for both of the Canelo fights. He sold out the O2 Arena when he fought Kell Brook. He agreed to go over to the UK. Triple G is just an international star. That's the best way I can put it. Just a fan favorite, and what he's accomplished. And so getting back to the style, like you said, to answer your question, there's the debate. The debate is, if there's 3-minute rounds, then there'd be more of a chance of a knockout. Although sometimes if the female champions get tired, then their style starts, getting a little bit. Which I'm trying to be politically correct here. So I certainly don't want to diminish the female champions, because I've worked with Layla Ali. I did 2 fights with Layla. I've worked with Lucia Riker. I think they're tremendous athletes. I think there's so many popular fighters now in female boxing that I really think it's becoming it's really coming into its own. And you got to give the networks credit, like HBO. Put Cecilia on Showtime, has pushed Clarissa Shields, Katie Taylor's with Eddie, Mikhail Myers with ESPN and Top Rank. So, there's a lot of popular fighters that are coming up. Just my personal opinion is I like to see the 2-minute rounds. I know that WBC has really been adamant about 2-minute rounds from a health and safety standpoint, but I think it's just more exciting when there's only 2 minutes. You can actually fight at a faster pace than if, sometimes in the 3-minute round for men's boxing, you'll see some holding, you'll see some running or boxing, whatever, and sometimes it can be not as exciting. Not the Triple G fights, naturally, because he would press the action all the time, but if it's a 2-minute round, I actually think female boxing benefits from that, because it becomes more of a compact round, and where the female champions know that they can go at a faster pace, more exciting pace for 2 minutes. So it's 10 rounds of 2 minutes, and I actually think it creates more excitement. Maybe it's not as many knockouts, but overall a more exciting pace for the 2-minute rounds.
Women's MMA kind of exploded onto the scene with Ronda Rousey and then Cyborg, Amanda Nunes. Do you think boxing should really look at what they did and try to copy that?
Yeah, there was one time where Ronda Rousey was the most popular champion in the UFC. She was the peak of her career. And I remember Dana famously said he'll never work with a female UFC fighter. So she definitely broke down the doors there. And now you have Amanda Nunes, so many, Chris Cyborg, so many popular fighters in MMA that you got to give them a lot of credit. Zhang from China, she's extremely popular. I love watching female UFC fights or MMA fights. And I really think that with more females competing in boxing, it just became an Olympic sport recently. Cecilia wasn't able to compete in the Olympics, but Clarissa was lucky enough to have the opportunity to fight in the Olympics and won 2 gold medals. I know a lot of the girls were supporting her in her gold medal bid. And I think with the more deeper talent pool, that's when you'll see the bigger events. Like, if Cecilia is successful August 15th and Katie Taylor is successful August 22nd, that becomes a huge fight, not only for women's boxing, really the biggest fight ever in women's boxing, but for the overall sport of boxing, that's a huge event. So I think with the advent of more talented females getting into boxing, I think you're seeing the popularity and the talent level increasing.
Tom, Danny and I were both present for the Triple G Vanes Martirosyan fight in this I don't know, was it May 2018, 2017?
I remember that very well. That was May 5, Cinco de Mayo, 2018. Triple G's original opponent, unfortunately, got suspended. And so we were scrambling. He was supposed to actually fight. I forgot his name. It's gonna not look good, but anyway,
it'll come to you. It'll come to you.
He was supposed to fight the
Jaime Munguia.
Jaime Munguia, right. Unfortunately, the Nevada Commission didn't approve Munguia.
I never understood that. I never understood why.
He was 28-0 with 25 knockouts. He was a big junior middleweight.
Right.
Triple G is not the youngest guy, in the world. So I didn't really, I personally didn't understand it. I didn't know, it's their ruling for health and safety. But now Jaime Munguia is considered, I think, the best junior middleweight champion, in that time since 2018. In 2 years now, he's elevated himself to the best junior middleweight champion. I think that would have been a tremendous fight, especially on Cinco de Mayo. But because we weren't able to make that fight, I famously told people, don't cancel your tickets. Triple G will still fight in Las Vegas at the MGM. And then we got the carpet pulled out from under us because, pay-per-view loved the fight, MGM loved the fight. But for whatever reason, the Nevada Commission wouldn't approve that fight. And so we had to go back to StubHub Center, literally on the shortest promotion I've ever worked on. It was, I think, literally 2 weeks or maybe even a day less than 2 weeks where we had to scramble, put together the fight with Vanes Martirosyan. It's not easy to find opponents in general to fight Triple G, and to find someone on short notice to fight him was virtually impossible. So we have to give Vanes a lot of credit. And Don King made the deal to allow Vanes to fight. And, once again, so not only does he hold the record at that stadium for the most people in attendance, he broke the record for the highest gate, which naturally he was a lot more popular when he fought Vanes than when he fought Antonio Rubio the first time. So we have a definite affinity for Dignity Health Stadium.
At that event, Tom, Cyborg came in with her entourage, and they were all wearing Cyborg v. Cecilia Breakers 2000, something like the summer of 2019. Cyborg, unfortunately, ended up losing her undefeated record to Amanda Nunes. Right. But will we still see that crossover fight in the future?
That's the fight where HBO had agreed to put Cecilia on. If you remember, Chocolatito was supposed to be the co-feature on the pay-per-view with Munguia, and then Cecilia was going to be on the pay-per-view as well. But then Chocolatito, I believe he got injured, and he had to pull out, and that opened the door for Cecilia to be the co-feature on HBO. And Chris Cyborg was there. They have a ton of respect for each other. I know Cecilia respects everything that Chris Cyborg has accomplished in MMA, and vice versa. And that would be a huge fight too. Cyborg is a tremendous stand-up puncher, very strong, and big punching power. And I think out of a lot of the MMA fighters, I think she would make a great transition into stand-up boxing. But it got derailed a little bit, like you said. She lost to Amanda Nunes. Cecilia went and signed this contract now with Matchroom and DAZN. But if there's a way to put that together in the future, I think that would be a tremendous event, not only for boxing, but a crossover event where we've seen some boxers go to UFC and not do so well. Like, James Toney is an example. Once you have so much training and stand-up and you get into someone with jiu-jitsu or wrestling skills, it's pretty much over when you're on the ground. But we saw Holly Holm be successful. Being a boxer and going to UFC. But I think if anyone can make the transition the other way around, I think Chris Cyborg definitely is so talented and so strong at boxing, that stand-up boxing, that she would do really well.
That sounds like a fight for StubHub.
Definitely could be. Yeah, it definitely could be. I mean, Chris Cyborg lives here locally. In California. Cecilia trains now at Big Bear, California. So that would be a natural location for a fight like that.
Tom, do you think, with Cyborg, obviously she now fights for Bellator MMA.
Yes.
She was with UFC, but obviously they, after the loss and everything, she's had some issues with Dana White that's been obviously publicized in the media, obviously. Yeah. And since you had an initial deal with UFC Fight Pass at the beginning of this year, do you think Cyborg, if you could get her to come fight in a boxing match, under your promotion or something? I mean, do you think it'd be difficult to get her to fight under the UFC Fight Pass just because of the past she has with them, or would you look at another way to do it?
I think it'd be a different way to do it. I think it'd be a different platform. That actually could be a pay-per-view event. There's so many different platforms that I think would have a ton of interest. Could be on DAZN, since Cecilia is with Matchroom and DAZN. Could be on that platform. So it's really premature. Under these conditions, under these virus times, as I call them, we're just gonna be happy to get through August 15th. And then if Katie Taylor wins, that's a great fight. So talking about a Cyborg fight is like way down the road. So everything is so premature. And we saw DAZN launch, just a couple years ago. And, they've become a huge player in boxing. So you never know if there might be even a different player at that time down the road. So it's really hard to speculate on that. But I think if a fight like that is made, I think definitely we'll be able to figure out a platform that would that'd be viable for that event.
Kind of going back to Cecilia, Tom, just because we talked about Katie Taylor and Delphine Persoon are going to rematch in the next couple of weeks as well, and obviously the first match that they had a lot of scrutiny. There was some people who said, Persoon might have edged it, or Katie Taylor got the win, obviously, but when you were able to talk to Cecilia after that, whether it was that day or the next day or a couple weeks later when you had a conversation, what was her opinion on that fight? Did she think Katie Taylor deserved the win on that night in the first matchup?
That's a good question. I didn't really ask her. She definitely, it was a tremendous fight. Like you said, it's very close. I could have seen a draw in that fight, which would have been interesting because I think they were fighting for Persoon's titles. Mm-hmm. Or at least she was WBC champion, so I think that was a unification fight. But I thought it was a very close fight. Cecilia thought it was a very close fight. She thought Persoon maybe surprised Katie, that Katie wasn't 100%. Not that she wasn't prepared, but I think she was a little bit surprised that Delphine was as strong as she was. So I was listening to an interview that Cecilia gave, and she says that she thinks Katie will be better prepared for Delphine Persoon in the rematch, and she expects Katie to have a more dominant win. A lot of credit to Delphine Persoon. She fought her heart out in that first fight. Like I said, I could have seen a draw in that fight with Persoon retaining her title. But Cecilia said that she thinks that Katie was a little bit surprised that Delphine's style, her strength, and tenacity, and she'll be better prepared for her the second time around.
And obviously Cecilia is headlining that DAZN card in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is happening outdoors, like you said.
Yeah.
So that should be an interesting sight to see. It's a night event. It's happening in the evening, right?
Yeah, local time, Tulsa. I was just talking to the guys at Matchroom today. I think it's going to be 10:15 or 10:30 local time. So it's going to be an evening event. It is humid and pretty hot out there in Tulsa in the summertime, but I think by the time it hits that time of the night, it's supposed to be comfortable around 75 degrees. So that should be a great. I personally love outdoor events. We did some outdoor events when James Toney fought at Fantasy Springs. Out there was an outdoor event that got really hot out there in naturally the Dignity Health or StubHub Center. Those are outdoor events. Cecilia fought outdoors in Norway. We did a lot of the Klitschko events. Were actually in soccer stadiums. So it wasn't necessarily outdoors, but it had that outdoor feeling. Wembley Stadium, I mean, that's probably the highlight of the outdoor events I've worked on, where Vladimir fought Anthony Joshua. Not only the atmosphere there, but the fight inside the ring. When Vitaly Klitschko fought Lennox Lewis, I thought that was one of the most exciting heavyweight fights I've ever seen. And it was back and forth action. I thought Vitaly was winning. Well, he was winning the fight on all the judges' scorecards, 4 rounds to 2 to the 6th round. But they unfortunately stopped the fight because of the cut. But that was an exciting fight. Vladimir Klitschko against Anthony Joshua, where Vladimir gets knocked down, then he knocks Joshua down. a lot of people thought Joshua wasn't getting up from that right hand, which actually surprises me because when you see the Andy Ruiz fight, Andy definitely didn't hit him like Vladimir hit him.
No.
He hit him with his powerful right hand. And I think Andy just kind of caught him on the temple and knocked his equilibrium out of whack. And but you got to give AJ a lot of credit for getting up from that knockdown and then coming back and then famously landing that uppercut, which stopped Vladimir, I believe, the 11th round out there. But that was a tremendous outdoor event there at Wembley Stadium. So we're looking forward to it. It's kind of a unique atmosphere, just being outdoors. This will be different for sure. No fans in attendance, so it'll be outdoors and quiet out there in Tulsa. But we're looking forward to it. We're just happy that Matchroom has a date and a location for Cecilia, and I know she's happy to get this training camp over with and to finally get in the ring since she's been in camp since January.
Tom, you mentioned Klitschko there, and he always seems to tease us with his return. With Mike Tyson fighting Roy Jones Jr. and this League of Legends or something like that it's called, do you think we may see either of them return, Vitaly or Vladimir?
I don't think Vitaly, because Vitaly's the mayor of Kiev. I mean, that has a huge responsibility that goes with it. What Vitaly's taking on, I mean, I had a tremendous amount of respect for him as a boxer, as a person. Both the Klitschko brothers are PhDs. They're two of the smartest, not only boxers or athletes that I know, but just individuals. I mean, they're so worldly and educated, well-spoken. They speak, I think 4 different languages. And so Vitaly being the mayor of Kiev and all the political pressure that he has and responsibility, he didn't have to go into politics. He could have retired easily, very comfortably there in Ukraine or Germany, or really retired wherever he wanted to in the world. And he decided to fight for the people, bring about some positive change for the city of Kiev, make it more westernized, more shifting towards a kind of European lifestyle, since he lived in Germany for so long during his fighting days. And got to give him a lot of credit, because that's not an easy situation. You have Russia as your neighbor that invaded part of Ukraine. And so he's got a big battle on his hands, and he's trying to improve the infrastructure there of Kiev. From what I understand, there's, the old system is really hard to break, because it was just so much rampant corruption there in Ukraine that it's really hard to get people's mentality to change. So I don't think you'll see Telly back. Every time I see Vladimir, he looks like he's still in fighting shape, still in training camp. That's actually the last time I was on an airplane when I flew to Miami, and I saw Vladimir out there the end of February. First couple of days of March, I came back, and like I said, every time I see him, he's in tremendous shape. He does tease a lot on social media, and every time I ask, I would love as a fan, not only working with him, but I would love as a fan to see him back in the ring, because I thought Vladimir had so many tremendous knockouts. I really think that he's one of those guys that could come back. What's he now? 44, and I really think he could come back and really compete at the top level of the game. Naturally, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, those are huge headlines of them going back in, but that's an exhibition, and that's not really at the elite level of the sport. But Vladimir, I think if he fought again, whether he fought Deontay Wilder, whether it was a rematch with Fury, whether a rematch with AJ, I really think he's still at that highest competitive level. So I would personally like to see it, but I'm not the one in the ring that's going to get in the face. So that's completely up to Vladimir. People ask me that question all the time. Do I think he's going to come back? And I said, Vladimir's the only one that knows whether it's something that he wants to do. Vladimir's another one that doesn't need financially, for sure. So many title defenses that he made, fighting in Germany, selling out soccer stadiums all over the world. He definitely doesn't need to fight financially, but a lot of these successful champions, and Vladimir had one of the longest runs, I think the longest time-wise run as being a heavyweight champion, where if he wanted to be back into that spotlight, I think he could, with the right preparation, compete at that, like I said, at that top level.
Just, working with him and being a fan, as you said, is there anybody that he ever spoke about that, that you think he would come back and fight, like a little itch that he needs to scratch, like the rematch with Joshua or something like that?
I think he wants to get Tyson Fury back in the ring. He was disappointed how that night went.
Yeah.
I would have bet my house on him winning that.
Yeah, that was a surprise to all of us. But you got to give Tyson Fury credit, and he proved it again. It wasn't just a fluke; he proved it again against Deontay Wilder. But Tyson Fury did what over I think a 10-year or 12-year span, what nobody could do. And he went to Germany and won the fight. So you got to give him credit for that. But there were a number of things on that night that I think Vladimir might have done differently. And so I think he would like that fight again. I always personally wanted to see him against Deontay Wilder. Deontay has huge power in his hands. Vladimir has big power. They sparred together before. Vladimir actually had Anthony Joshua up to training camp in the Austrian Alps that I was telling you about. Deontay Wilder, Joseph Parker. I mean, who's who? Dillian White. Who's who of top elite heavyweights now, and they were all his sparring partners, throughout the years. And Emmanuel always wanted to get the best guys in. And even Tyson Fury was there. He wasn't there for sparring, but Emmanuel kind of took Tyson under his wing and really saw something in Tyson Fury. And he told everyone at the time, he said that this man will be a heavyweight champion at some time. And Emmanuel was right. Tyson Fury shocked the world against Vladimir Klitschko. And, had a tremendous fight the first time against Wilder. And I think he put an exclamation point on it with the rematch with Wilder. So, Vladimir really groomed a lot of people and showed them what a true disciplined, structured heavyweight champion he was. And I think everyone that was up there at the time learned a tremendous amount from being up in the camp and training with Vladimir.
Look at all those names you mentioned. They're all in the top 5 of the heavyweight division. That's literally sparring that, people always say, like, they'd pay to see that sparring. Like, you definitely would pay to see that sparring.
There was some electric sparring matches. And I got to tell you, Vladimir, Vitaly would work on his style. So he didn't care. If he didn't look good in sparring, it didn't matter to him. As long as he looked good in the fight, that was fine for Vitaly. And a lot of times, he's awkward and that type of thing. So it didn't matter. He has a lot of respect for his training partners, and he just wanted to improve his style under his coach at the time, Fritz Stunek. Vladimir, on the other hand, he always wanted to show that he was the heavyweight champion of the world. So if for some reason one guy had a pretty good day against him, and again, these are elite guys, the top guys at the time coming in to train with Vladimir, and so. If you have an off day and the other guy looks good, or, we had literally, I was going over with Jonathan Banks. I mean, literally we had like 10 to 12 guys at a time and top level guys. The list goes on and on. I could keep going over more and more names. Devera Williamson was in at one time. Anyway, there's so many names, but Vladimir would always, if, like I said, someone like after like he's been in with the 4th or 5th guy and he was getting a little bit tired, and here's a new guy coming in fresh 2 rounds, the next day he would say, okay, I want that guy for 3 or 4 rounds, and he would make sure there was no question in that camp who was the best in the world, and he always wanted to show that he was the heavyweight champion. It's fine. He didn't abuse sparring partners for sure. They were treated very well. Sometimes you see guys kind of brought in and they're like overmatched and so that's unfortunate to see. But Vladimir always treated both Vladimir Vitaly treated their sparring partners with the utmost respect because sparring partners are there to help you. If you don't respect them, then Triple G is another perfect example. He always appreciates the guys that come in and help him train for the fight. And treat them as great as they can. They were staying in the 5-star hotel resort in the Austrian Alps. They got to eat all this healthy food, cook food at this 5-star restaurant. And a lot of guys didn't want to leave. It was like, I wouldn't say it's a vacation because we had to spar 4 days a week, but the days off, they definitely took advantage of it, and they really enjoyed the time up there. And those were great times in the Stankovic Hotel, it's called, in the Austrian Alps for the Klitschko training camps.
Tom, speaking of we touched on Triple G. Obviously, you've been involved with this team for a number of years now. Is there anything on the horizon for him? Does he want to kind of fight during this pandemic? Because, I mean, you got to respect fighters' decisions if they don't want to fight during this pandemic because, there's obviously elevated risks involved. But, is there any potential that we could see him maybe in front of no crowds right now?
No, he definitely wants to fight. Jonathan Banks has been out for the last week, training out here, just doing some foundation training. So now they're kind of starting the whole training camp. He's supposed to fight in the fall. We don't have an exact date for him yet, but he does, as everyone knows, he has an exclusive contract with his own. And so I'm always excited when Triple G gets back in the ring. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. It's just to depend, regardless of what style someone brings, he makes it an exciting fight. You look at the first fight on HBO. I was talking about Brian Sabayo before, how he would rise to the occasion in Madison Square Garden. Triple G, every time there was a new challenge for him, the first fight on HBO, the first time he fought in Germany when it was supposed to be on Vladimir Klitschko's undercard, and then Vladimir, or a co-feature, and then he got injured, and then he was headlining, went from a 50,000-seat arena to a literally 500-seat ballroom in Germany, but he wanted to impress everyone there. A lot of the media was there still because of the Klitschko fight. First time on HBO against Proxa. Proxa was very underrated. He was a European champion. He was a slick southpaw, moved around a lot. And you got to keep in mind that HBO debut, he was supposed to unify titles with Dmitry Pirog. It was a killer at the time. He's the one that knocked out Danny Jacobs, WBO champion. It would have been great if that fight happened. He would have gotten that elusive WBO title, which he never was able to get. Either from Peter Quillen or from Billy Joe Saunders. But so Pirog got injured. He actually wound up never fighting again, unfortunately. And then so Artie Pelulu found pretty much the complete opposite style to Dmitry Pirog, who was a huge right-handed puncher. He found this slick southpaw from Poland, the European champion. And Triple G didn't care. He said, it doesn't matter who. He just, at that time, he was trying to get the exposure. If you remember,
right,
he was a tremendous fighter, but he didn't have any television exposure.
Right.
And so, again, I go back to giving Peter Nelson a lot of credit at the time, having the foresight of putting him on. And the only reason he got that Pirog fight, a lot of people forget, but Daniel Geale was supposed to fight Pirog. That was going to be a unification fight. And then Geale got a bigger offer to go to Germany to fight Felix Sturm, which he took. He thought that was a better fight for him. And that opened up the door for Triple G to fight Pirog. And so he went through a lot of different things, sacrifices to get on HBO, and he made the most of it. And so getting back to your question, when I start talking about these guys, I kind of...
It's okay. It's okay.
Keep going, but he's supposed to have a fight coming up here in the fall, and hopefully we can announce that pretty soon in terms of the date and the location. And the way it's going now, most likely there's not going to, if there's any fans, it's not going to be a lot. And most of these shows now these days with the bubble is there's no fans in attendance. So we're still trying to figure that one out.
So before we let you go here, Tom, obviously we appreciate the time you've spent with us here this week for this episode 91 of The Last Round. But we had told some people you were coming on and stuff like that, and then it's mostly the hardcore boxing fans who know about this. But every Sunday you do go normally on the Santa Monica track with the editor in chief of the Ring Magazine, Dougie Fisher.
That's right.
who was on with us last week. He's been on our show quite a few times, so we appreciate that. But some people ask me, like, how can we never see Tom do the jump rope or do the 10 pull-ups and stuff? I feel like Dougie's just trying to flex on him and trying to show him up. So what they want to know your response to that, man.
I can actually, I can jump rope pretty good. So I'm the one. It's on my phone, on my Instagram, or on the Periscope. So I'm the one holding the camera. It's nice when we have someone else. Actually, there's a couple guys. Either Mike Styles would come out occasionally, or Samir would help us with it. But if it's just Doug, Coach Dave, or myself, then I'm the one, holding the phone. So. But I get my workouts in. I run 2 miles on the tracks. I can jump rope. I can do the pull-ups. Doug's better at the pull-ups. I'm better at jumping rope than Doug. But one of these days maybe we'll switch up and I'll go on the camera to do a little jump rope. But the impressive thing about what Doug does jumping rope is not only does he jump rope, but he answers these obscure questions in Schwartz, who's been attending boxing matches for 74 years. He comes up with these. I've never even heard of some of these names. And Doug's like, okay, here's the opponent. Here's where they fought. This is the year they fought. This is Doug Fischer is such an encyclopedia of walking boxing knowledge,
right.
Not just current knowledge. I mean, my knowledge goes back to like early 90s, maybe late 80s. That's kind of my wheelhouse. But they're talking about fighters from the 50s, from the 60s, from the 40s, even going back earlier than that. So really impressed with Doug's knowledge of some of these super obscure fighters and names. And I think that's just entertaining to listen to him rattle off these answers.
Absolutely, yeah. He's definitely an encyclopedia. I think that's the perfect descriptive word you can use for him.
Yeah. And we had Jonathan Banks because he was in L.A., like I said, training Triple G. We had him on the show last Sunday. So, and Jonathan is a wealth of information, growing up in Emmanuel's house in Detroit. Emmanuel was his mentor, and, everything related to the Kronk gym. And the fighters that Emmanuel trained, and Jonathan was involved with the Klitschko camps, with the Lennox Lewis camps. So anything you ever want to know, he would be interesting actually to have on the show because he could talk about how the training's going with Triple G, and maybe after we have something announced, he could talk about the fight and the matchup and everything. But Jonathan impressed me as well as his boxing knowledge, and he's very well spoken. Kind of quiet in terms of not very. Outgoing. Some trainers are just kind of in your face, and Jonathan's much more relaxed, kind of laid back. But he's very effective on his training stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. We're here. So anytime he's ready to come on, obviously we'll be glad to have him. But once again, Tom, obviously we want to thank you for your time. Luckily, you're on the West Coast over here with us. We're all in the Southern California area, so. Sometimes we get, guests from the East Coast, or sometimes they're in England or Europe, so we kind of have to play with the time here. So it's kind of nice to have a West Coast person sometimes. It's easier for all the parties involved. But obviously, August 15th, you have the DAZN card with Cecilia Brækhus against Jessica McCaskill coming up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is going to be an outdoor venue. So that should be interesting. But before we let you go, Tom, go ahead and plug. Obviously, you got the DAZN card coming up with Cecilia Brækhus, like I just mentioned. Go ahead and plug anything else you got upcoming and your social media.
Yeah, we're just excited about August 15th on DAZN USA. Got to give a lot of credit to Matchroom USA, to Eddie and Frank, and everyone. They got tremendous staff there. Watch for an announcement with Triple G. It should be coming up pretty soon. And then we'll just keep firing away. Glad that boxing's back, and look forward to the show on August 15th. Don't miss that one.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate it, Tom. Thank you very much, and you have a good rest of your night here.
Great. It's great talking to you guys. You guys are very in-depth boxing guys, and anyone that wants to follow, my social media is at Tom Lawler 1 on both Twitter and Instagram, so that's easy. easy to find. And like you said, those track videos, anyone that hasn't seen them, Sunday mornings, they're not at a specific time because it kind of depends on everyone's schedule, but usually Sunday mornings around 10 or 11 o'clock LA time, West Coast time. You can tune into the either the Periscope or the Instagram Live.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, we appreciate it. Anytime you want to come back on, or like you said, you want Jonathan Banks on, or especially when your promotion gets back on its feet during this pandemic era, and
yeah, absolutely.
Reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to have some of your fighters and some of your people on.
Yeah, sounds good. I appreciate that, guys.
Tom Loeffler, man, he's one of the good guys, right?
I could listen to those Klitschko stories all night.
Yeah, he's good. Like when he starts talking about that, like, he talks about like Klitschko having that itch. I don't think he really said he had that itch, but it was just more his opinion. But sometimes media outlets will talk about like, Tom Loeffler says Klitschko wants to come back, and it's just like, well, he didn't really say that. He just says, well, I'm sure, because he's right though. Like Vladimir Klitschko always looks in shape.
Yeah.
Even since he retired, 2015? That was the Anthony Joshua fight?
Wow, was it that long ago?
I think so, wasn't it? Or was it 2016?
Maybe it is. Maybe it is 5 years, yeah. So
4 or 5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, and he's right. Like every time that he brought up a good point. Klitschko's always in shape. I mean, he's works out. A lot of these guys, stay in the workout routine, but I mean, he's right though. Like, I mean, at 44 years old, obviously Father Time is undefeated, but I mean, maybe he might still have enough left in the tank to come back and have that one last hurrah. But I mean, like, I'm cool with him staying retired though. I know we're like touching on it, which is kind of interesting because like he went out, even though he went out in a loss to Anthony Joshua, like it was an awesome fight. It was one of the best fights and one of the best events you've ever seen. Like, especially if you were there live, obviously, like, two heavyweight gods at the moment fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world who knock each other down and the other ones get up and knocks the other one down. Like, I mean, retiring after that, even though you lost, I mean, it doesn't really get any better than that, right?
I was surprised that he retired on a loss just because of how competitive a person he is. His record, even though he lost that fight with Anthony Joshua, they both came away with good credit because he dropped Joshua, didn't jump on him and, finish him off and ended up losing. But I thought just as a competitive person, the way that he was, like when he had such a long, 10-year career at the top of the heavyweight division, I was surprised he didn't, rematch Joshua or come back and, just fight somebody else in Germany just to say farewell to the fans. So I do wonder if that's something that kind of like irks him a little bit, that fight, and also the fight with Tyson Fury, because Fury used to play head games with him and tease him and stuff like that. So I do wonder, if, like Tom said, if he comes back, does he want to fight Tyson? Because Tyson's not a huge puncher. Tyson's
right.
not somebody that's going to put you in hospital and kind of really really injure someone of like who's 44 years old, maybe even 45 if he actually does return. Where like someone you wouldn't want him to fight like a Wilder, because Wilder could, really really hurt you. Tyson's kind of like, well, like even against Fury against Wilder, like it was multiple punches that kind of did the damage to Deontay. So.
You know who I would want to see, just because of the pre-fight entertainment and the promotional aspect of it? Shannon the Cannon Briggs against Vladimir Klitschko. Just because all those video clips of Shannon Briggs messing with Klitschko over the years, they would use that into promotional materials and video, like when he chases him, but like when he's on like a surfboard or something like that, he's like on a boat and he's doing like waves around him to make him fall. Man, that was some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen in the sport.
I was surprised that he didn't get the rematch just because of that. Commercially, it would have sold because of all the time and expense that went into Shannon chasing him around the world.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I was
kind of surprised that they didn't make it.
Right. Yeah, but just because of the entertainment factor behind it, that'd be interesting. They're both older guys, you never know. But whatever. It is what it is. But obviously we appreciate Tom Loeffler of 360 Promotions jumping on this week of the last round for episode 91. And real quick, the last few minutes of the episode here. Let's jump into the reviews. We'll start with this past Saturday, the 1st of August, from the newly developed Matchroom Fight Camp in Essex, United Kingdom on DAZN. Egg and cheese. Like I told you before, I didn't put two and two together until I saw on Twitter they were saying egg and cheese. Ted Cheeseman gets the unanimous decision win over 12 rounds against Sam Eggington for the IBF International Super Welterweight title. What did you think, Mike? What a war. Greatest fight I've ever seen. Twitter did go a little bit crazy for it. For the standard it was, like a British level fight. It's kind of people were getting ahead of themselves, comparing it to like Gatti Ward and other Canelo Triple G. But it was two British level fighters that went at it. I thought Cheeseman did well. Eggington did really well. I thought it was maybe a little bit closer. Cheeseman maybe sneaked it. But to start fight camp and to get boxing back up and running, I thought it was a decent fight. Yeah, I think, like you said, there was a lot of publicity behind it. It was the first event back for Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, who is obviously, for the last few years especially, has a bigger stronghold grip in England than Frank Warren does. So especially because they have a lot more capital in terms of monetary backup and stuff like that. And then because they were doing it in his backyard, it was just like a different spin on how to do fights in the pandemic era. And then he's been promoting it. And obviously Eddie Hearn does a ton of interviews all the time, whether it's Boxing Social, IFL TV, he does a ton of interviews. So he's always keeping himself and his company, Matchroom or whatever, in the current news cycle. So, I think it was more, like you said, like I agree. It's like people talking about Gatti Ward or all this, greatest fight of all time. Obviously, it's premature. I think it was just people who were happy to see that boxing was back from a major promoter, even though Frank Warren had already put a couple fights on over there. But obviously, and from a magnitude standpoint, Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, this was a lot bigger. I think Matchroom just capitalized off everything. They've moved with the times. Like Matchroom constantly posting stuff on Twitter, Instagram. Over this pandemic, they've managed to really upgrade their YouTube page to some really class, well-cut, different types of interviews, podcasts. They've updated the matchroomboxing.com website where you can watch all the old fights and stuff like that. They really have, just moved with the times, whereas Frank Warren doesn't do that many interviews. The social media is like, okay, they don't go over the top, and they just need to have a better salesman. No, right. You're right. And I don't think anybody can argue that out of all the major promoters at the moment, Golden Boy, Top Rank, PBC, Matchroom, obviously, I think Matchroom, or even, Frank Warren's Queensberry Promotions, obviously, if you want to include them, I don't think you can argue that Matchroom and Eddie Hearn put a lot of stock into their marketing, their advertising, their digital footprint, like you said, on YouTube, the behind the scenes stuff, the interviews. Like, I think Matchroom is way ahead of the curve in terms of these other promoters, in terms of keeping a constant flow of content. I would think maybe Top Rank is right behind them. I mean, Top Rank is good in terms of their social media. Yeah, I think the stuff that they do is always clean cut, very good promos. The photographer, Mikey Williams, great modern styles, right. Always does, those fisheye things and stuff from the air, great shots. But then also, I think just Matchroom itself is, they've got Matchroom UK, Matchroom USA, Germany, Spain, Italy. They really are trying to take over. This isn't a Matchroom loving. It's just, Top Rank do shows in the US. Right. That's it. PBC do shows in the US. That is it. Right. Golden Boy, the same. They may do a one-off one in Japan or something like that for, a single fighter, but they don't do steady, consistent shows like Matchroom do. Right. No, you're right. You're right. I think people are just happy to have more boxing, especially one of the other major promoters in the UK, of course. And obviously, quickly rounding off that card, James Tennyson. Did I say that right?
James Tennyson, TKO 6 over Gavin Gwynn for the vacant British lightweight title. Good fight. Tennyson really just showing his power. That's why I think he's got something like 23 knockouts out of 27 wins. Right. Then Jordan Gill, that turns 25-1, unanimous decision over Reece Bellotti. Good fight. To be honest with you, I thought Jordan Gill really should have taken Reece Bellotti out. I know that Jordan Gill has just come back from an injury where he had a thyroid problem. It was, he was really struggling to make weight all the time. He was feeling really, really tired, and he took a lot of time off and sorted that out before he came back. But I thought Reece Bellotti was a little bit one-dimensional. I thought Jordan Gill, who kind of looked like he's going to be a world beater to begin with, should have really got him out of there. Fabio Wardley, now 9-0, TKO 3 over Simon Vallely for the vacant English heavyweight title. Good fight for Fabio Wardley. I think he's kind of coming of age because he was a white-collar fighter in the UK. Obviously, his manager's Dylan White. Simon Vallely, British amateur, never really kind of lived up to his potential because of, his, behavior away from the ring, shall we say.
Outside behavior.
Yeah, exactly. Getting in trouble with the law. So, and then to round it up, Dalton Smith turned 6-0 with a KO 5 win over Nathan Bennett. Good fight, Dalton Smith. I thought he stepped up to the plate. I think if he carries on like he is, he'll kind of probably be a world beater somewhere down the line if he gets that promotional push from Eddie Hearn.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then also this past Saturday from the Mohegan Sun Casino in the state of Connecticut over here in the United States, Showtime returns. PBC returns on Showtime. Mayweather Promotions gets another world champion. I believe this is their second world champion if you include Gervonta Davis, right? Angelo Leo remains undefeated at 20-0 and gets the 12-round unanimous decision win to capture his first WBO Super Bantamweight World title as he defeats and hands Tremaine Williams his first career loss. What did you think of that fight?
I honestly thought the Tremaine Williams was going to win. When I saw that he got picked up and was replacing Stephen Fulton, who had to pull out due to a positive coronavirus test, I thought Tremaine Williams had a better pedigree. I thought, his amateur background, because he was one of the standouts coming out of the amateur scene, another one who also got in trouble with the law, spent a little bit of time away, came back to the sport. I just thought he was actually going to outclass him. First 4 rounds were close. Angelo Leo kind of stepped it up a gear and ran away with it towards the end. I've never really seen a lot of Angelo Leo. A lot of his opponents were kind of unknown. But, he stepped up to the plate on that day and really took the WBO Super Bantamweight title with both hands.
Right. Yeah. I know Mayweather Promotions was definitely happy for that, obviously getting another world title under their banner. Because I think, in terms of promoters or name recognition promoters, I think they have the less amount of titles under their stable if you compare them.
They don't do anything.
Right. Yeah, they need to put their fighters out there more. Obviously,
just like a hobby for Mayweather.
Maybe, yeah.
He doesn't do anything with it.
But maybe this is a a spark plug to do a little bit more. Who knows? We'll see. But congratulations to Leo on his first world title win, because you can tell he was obviously very happy about it. And so was CEO of Mayweather Promotions, Leonard Ellerby. I saw following his Twitter. He was obviously tweeting his support and very happy about it, which was cool. And also rounding out that card, is it Rais Alim? Mm-hmm. Remains undefeated at 17-0 with a 10th round TKO over Marcus Bates. What'd you think of that fight?
Good fight. Obviously Alim was supposed to fight Williams, but Williams stepped up out of that fight to face Leo because of Fulton's, positive COVID tests. So Alim did, what he should have done really, fighting Bates. He just got him out of there and then move on to hopefully fight. It looks like Brendan Figueroa Jr., as this fight was a WBA, Eliminator. That's the word I was looking for.
And then ending that card, Joseph George also remains undefeated with the 9th round KO knockout over Marcos Escudero, who suffers the second loss of his career. Joseph George was actually getting at least from boxing Twitter, he was actually getting quite a more attention than I assumed. I thought his name was being thrown out there a lot in terms of boxing Twitter. What do you think?
I mean, the KO was, KO of the year so far. So for people that didn't maybe see that card, just go on Twitter, type in, Joseph George, and look out for that. Look out for that KO. It was a beauty. Right.
And moving on to previews here towards the end of the show. This Friday, the 7th of August, another edition of Matchroom Fight Camp in the backyard of Eddie Hearn's childhood home, again in Essex, UK on DAZN. The main event is another, coincidentally, like we just had Tom Loeffler talking about Cecilia Brækhus and Jessica McCaskill headlining the DAZN card in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This one's also headlined by a female, an all-female main event. Terry Harper 10-0 goes up against Natasha Jones, or is it Jonas?
Jonas,
sorry. Who's 9-1. This is for the WBO and IBO super featherweight world titles. What do you think of that fight?
I think it should be a good fight. I think Terry Harper's been looking really good, really fresh now that she's gone full time and as a unified world champion. Jonas didn't look too good a few fights ago when she was blown out by the French lady. But she's training with Joe Gallagher. Joe Gallagher's been saying how good she's been looking in camp. So I think it should be a good close fight. I would like to see Terry Harper win because of all the back and forth between her and Michaela Mayer all over Twitter. So there'd be kind of a good war, and Steffi Bull's been getting into it as well, which is Terry Harper's trainer. So that'd be a good fight, just to see, because Michaela Mayer, top-ranked fighter against a Matchroom fighter. So it'd be kind of a good cross-promotion.
Yeah, definitely. That's an interesting matchup, especially with two different promoters coming, having to make that fight. Rounding off that card, obviously, Chris Billiam Smith, 10-1, goes up against Nathan Trawley for the Commonwealth Cruiserweight title. What's your initial reaction to this fight?
Chris Billiam Smith, I think, is up and coming. Be good to see if he can carry on, kind of evolving into a well-rounded cruiserweight. I could see really him taking this, even though he's had that one loss. I think he's kind of hopefully Matchroom are trying to push him as the A side. He's a clean cut, good-looking dude. I could see them, kind of trying to hang in some promotion on him. So good fight, though.
Good fight. Also on the card, Anthony Fowler, 12-1, returns against Adam Harper, 9-1. What do you think of that fight?
Anthony Fowler, you either love him or you hate him, right? The CBD
love hate.
Yeah, he has that love-hate relationship with the crowd. The CBD salesman on Twitter.
Andy Ruiz's friend?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, something. I don't like his style. He still has that very amateur, like he has his hands like out in front. He just has a very awkward style. It's not that great to watch. He took that loss against Scott Fitzgerald, which kind of, I think, humbled him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
A tiny little bit, because he's still
tiny.
Yeah, he's still got a big ego. I could maybe see him slipping up against Adam Harper, even though Adam Harper's 9-1, because I just think he has a very awkward style. It's like he throws everything into every punch, and it kind of ties him out into the later rounds.
Right.
I don't know. It's just for someone to have such a very extensive amateur record, he has a very awkward, stiff style.
Right.
But it should be a good fight, and I'm sure Anthony probably picked it so Fowler wins, so he can go back and have some of those fights against a rematch with Scott Fitzgerald maybe down the line, but he's ran into some troubles in his personal life as well. And then I don't know whatever happened to this O'Hara Davis fight. They were going back and forth on Twitter. They were doing interviews on IFL TV about Fowler fighting O'Hara Davis. I know they're at different weight categories, but they were kind of building this up to be some huge fight when boxing came back, and then it just died. So maybe it was just all talk.
Probably. Sounds like it was all talk.
Yeah.
Obviously, 2 more fights left on this card. All right. It's been a while since I asked you to do this, Mike. You're going to have to pronounce these names.
I think it's Aqib Fiaz, 5-0 is going to be against Kane Baker. That's just a spelling mistake on there. Fiaz looking like a great amateur pedigree. Kane Baker's obviously 13-6, kind of brought in as a journeyman. Fiaz should really go in there, blow him out, look good. I think he's another one who they're hoping is going to have a big future if he can just keep his head in the game, keep himself buckled down. Hopi Price, great prospect, 2-0, coming into fight. Johnny Phillips, 5-4. Another really prospect, should put on a good showing. I'd put money on really Hopi Price to, probably get him out of there.
So, and then the latest news and notes as we wrap up the show here. Just quick reactions for each of these headlines that have been happening in the news the last week or so in the sport of boxing. Errol Spence and Danny Garcia have announced on their respective social media accounts that they've signed to fight November 21st. What's your immediate reaction?
See, normally you'd say Errol Spence would go in there and blow him out. That was Errol Spence's had that car crash. So I'm guessing that either Errol Spence is, back to around 100%, because, Danny Garcia really isn't, just a mug to be taken lightly, So is he going to just cash out? I think, it's one of those where you're just going to have to see on the day when the bell rings, you're going to have to just see what Errol Spence is in the ring. Is he back to normal? Or is it an Errol Spence who's just going to go in there, get the biggest paycheck he could get, and get out of the game because he's got underlying injuries that we don't know about?
Yeah, that's a good point. But I still give credit to Errol Spence for taking this fight, because I think a lot of people thought that the crash was going to push him to take a voluntary defense or like a tune-up fight, I
don't think anyone would have said anything wrong with that. We wouldn't have given him shit for it, would we?
So, obviously somebody would have gave him shit for it. But I mean, like from a general perspective, yeah, he probably wouldn't have got any shit for it, because he was in a really bad car crash that, could have been even worse than it was. But, he's coming back, and then this fight was supposed to originally happen in January of this year after the Porter fight at Staples Center here in Los Angeles. But, obviously Errol Spence, stuff was in that car crash and other stuff. So, but, he's like you said, he's coming back. He could have taken a tune-up fight. Nobody really would have judged him for it, but he's coming back and fighting one of the top guys in the welterweight division, who's been one of the top guys in the welterweight division, a former world champion and stuff like that. So, I think that's the most intriguing notion about this fight. It's just to see which Errol Spence are we going to see. Like, are we going to see the one that, has been, dominant and fighting the best fighters, Sean Porter and all these guys, Kell Brook? Or are we going to see not only ring rust, but, the after effects of a really bad car crash that had him, I believe he was in the ICU for a little bit in the hospital. So, it was obviously very serious. But either way, it's an intriguing matchup. And I think personally that Spence is actually good to go. I don't think the car crash is going to have anything to do with it. I think obviously he knows his body better than anybody. I think he's going to be good to go, and he's going to be in there, and people are going to be like, "Oh my God, he looks better than ever, even after the car crash." Like I think he's good to go. Like I said, like I fully expected a tune-up fight, but we'll see. So that's supposed to be on November 21st, and we'll kind of go from there. And then at the age of 45, Sergio Martinez, who past guest of the show, who was on the show a few months ago, is scheduled to return in Spain on August 21st. What do you think? I mean, obviously we expected that. He was on the show. He was talking about trying to get a fight with a rematch with Chavez and stuff like that. So this isn't really surprising that he actually has a fight scheduled, but what's your initial take on that?
Surprising, because normally when people do that sort of stuff at that age, it's because of the need for money. But according to everybody in and around Martinez, he's invested very wisely. He's a huge star in Spain and Argentina. He does comedy. He does TV shows. Sure. It's literally just because he wants to get in there as a competitor. He's fighting somebody, like more of a journeyman type thing. But I think it's just one of those to, get in there, knock the dust off. And I would imagine they'll probably try and do the Chavez fight, like you mentioned, just because, it'll sell. It's a rematch. They both have big audiences in Mexico, Spain, and Argentina. So I'm sure they'll make good money from it.
Yeah, they'll figure it out somehow. And then Paulie Malignaggi was just released from his Showtime commentary job that he's had for several years now, and has been replaced by Abner Mares, Abner Mares was just on the Showtime card this past Saturday. Paulie Malignaggi gave an interview to IFL TV. I think it was within the last couple months. I believe. I don't think it was like very, very recent. I think it was a couple months ago.
May, I think.
Right. And then, I'm paraphrasing, but obviously said some stuff about, Eastern European fighters kind of being the more dominant fighters in the sport right now, or something like that. I mean, I don't want to say exactly what he said because, again, I don't want to get it wrong. I know it's a very sensitive topic, but obviously Showtime, CBS didn't like it, and they chose to let him go. But I think regardless of whether you agree with what he said or not, he was arguably the best part of that commentary team because he was so honest, and he was a very good talker. So
I totally agree with you. I think he was the best part of it. I mean, I don't really want to go over what he said because people are just going to twist and turn and, come back at you for the stuff that he said. But I think they used it. Obviously, I have no facts about it, but I think they used it just to get rid of him because I'm sure he said other stuff on the show. He said stuff about Manny Pacquiao taking steroids, and Manny Pacquiao is now going to be fighting on that platform.
Right.
So I'm sure he's probably annoyed people with how, black and white he is, how blunt he is. But that's why we loved him, because instead of watching a fight and listening to the commentary tell us how great it is, Paulie would tell us the truth and be like, "This fight's trash," and that's why we loved him, because you get sick of it. Once you get older, you realize, they're just telling us this fight's great because it's two Showtime fighters, and they need to promote it. Whereas with Paulie, you knew what you were getting. He would give you the truth, and I'm sick to death of listening to people like Brian Kenny and stuff like that just talk absolute trash the whole time about a fight which isn't that great. I understand they need to promote it because they're paying the money, and they're not going to turn around and say, "Oh, this fight's terrible. You should turn the TV channel off." But sometimes, just don't blow smoke up our asses because you don't want it. Times are changing. In the soccer in the UK, they have a lot of ex-footballers on there. Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, and they got on there and they spoke the black and white truth the whole time, and the fans loved it. And now the commentary's kind of changed in the UK, so that's what it is. And that's why I loved Paulie, because that's what he was like. You could listen to what he said, and he was knowledgeable. And I didn't always agree with what he said, but at least he told me his opinion, and I respected his opinion.
Right. No, you're right. You hit the nail on the head. And, unfortunately, this is obviously going to negatively affect other commentators or
Maris is trash. If they get Maris is trash.
Tell us how you really feel, Mike.
He is. Honestly, it's absolutely terrible. I thought that was the best one. And now they're going to replace and put Maris in it. Maris is absolutely terrible.
Oh, we'll get used to him, man. I think he's there to stay. So, you're going to have to get used to him whether you like him or not, Mike.
Good fighter, but terrible to commentator.
Gary Russell Jr. Shoots back at Terrence Crawford. They've been having a little social media beef. I mean, I don't really want to touch on this, but obviously it was in the news. They're kind of going back and forth. They're talking smack on each other on social media. I read somebody, and they hit the nail on the head. This is the most publicity that Gary Russell Jr. has had in his whole career.
Yeah, for people that don't know about it, Gary Russell and Terrence Crawford have been going back and forth because I can't remember who started it, but Gary Russell said that he got into an altercation with Terrence Crawford back in the day at the Olympic Training Center, where he went up and punched him, and Crawford didn't do anything, just kind of like grabbed his face. And I think it was kind of like supposed to be a passing comment, and then Terrence Crawford denied it, and he had people in his camp saying that this never happened, and Gary Russell was saying, well, how would half these people know? They weren't there. They were saying like Bomac wasn't there. Bomac was nothing to do with the Olympic training camp. So then, because Crawford was trying to obviously hide from the fact that it happened, or maybe it didn't happen, I wasn't there. They've been going back and forth, and then Gary Russell Jr. was sort of saying like, well, hey, let's fight then. I'll come up to 140, 147, and let's fight. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, I guess. A quick review of it. Yeah,
I mean, nothing's going to come out of it unless they really actually do fight, which is ridiculous. Gary Russell's fighting at 126.
20 pounds.
And Crawford is essentially a 154 pounder, essentially. So, you know, like that's the only way this is going to pay off is if they really do make a fight at like 140, 147. Russell moves up. Like, other than that, everybody's going to forget about this. Like they probably already have. So we apologize for bringing it up again, reminding you, but it's probably just going to go away and you're not going to hear about it anymore. But, you know, once again, guys, we appreciate you guys sticking with us this entire episode. And big thanks again to the head of 360 Boxing Promotions, Tom Loeffler, who has a couple of his fighters coming up, or one of his main fighters, the undisputed welterweight female world champion, Cecilia Brækhus, coming back August 15th on DAZN from Tulsa, Oklahoma, against Jessica McCaskill in the main event. Once again, like I said, big thanks to Tom Loeffler, who gave us quite a bit some information, you know, about Triple G, some other, you know, some insight. You know, he knows a lot about the game. He knows a lot about the game, and he's a good talker. You know, he answers questions well, which is cool. Always makes our job easier. But before we go ahead, Mike, plug our social media once again.
At The Last Round 12 on Twitter and Instagram, and join us next week. We'll be reviewing all those Matchroom Square Garden fights from the 7th, and obviously previewing the card we touched on today with Cecilia Brækhus against Jessica McCaskill from Tulsa.
So once again, for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.